Thank you so much for attending our first event of the year, and I think it's going to be an important one. There are some particular words I've been using a lot lately, looking at social care for PA employers. Scary is one, worrying is another. While a lot of the issues we're going to discuss today aren't new, it feels like many of them are coming to boil as the realities of shrinking budgets and social care starts to truly impede on our rights. This event is somewhat different to the themes that we've had in the last couple of years, where we bring up a topic and try and provide some information and guidance on it. Today, our session is more about coming together as a community to fight back and say enough is enough. The whole point of direct payments, whether funded through social care or the NHS, the fundamental reason that they exist is not just to provide care. If that was the case, we could all just live together in one big building with a few carers and save a bunch of money. Oh wait, except that's exactly what used to happen. And there was a reason both disabled people and society said that forced institutions and warehousing us was completely and utterly unacceptable. The real reason for direct payments is to give us autonomy and control over our own lives, and to allow each of us to tailor our care plans to our own unique needs and preferences. But I would hazard a guess that choice and control aren't the first words that always come to mind lately. We look to the recent news from Bristol Council, who proposed a policy called the Fair and Affordable Care Policy, which has meant the council would have looked at the cheapest option rather than the choice the care recipient wanted, meaning people could have been forced into care homes if cheaper than having PAs at home. So once again, warehousing us based on cost, not choice. It was also suggested that they would give out equipment instead of PA time. The backlash against this policy was huge, and it forced Bristol Council to back down, but it's one battle amongst many. On the other hand, Devon Council already passed a policy under the same name with very similar connotations towards the beginning of last year, and members may be aware of other councils having put similar policies in place or considering it. Then other councils, in addition, have been putting out blanket policies. For example, saying they will no longer fund PA time for shopping or going to appointments or household tasks, or you insert the thing here. Not only does this go against the Care Act, it pushes the fact only personal care matters and not the lives that we want to lead. And it's not okay to use the funding crisis as a stick to beat us with and determine that disabled people should bear the brunt of the savings that need to be made. If councils like Tower Hamlets can declare that social care will be free to their residents, then clearly other councils are making a choice about where to spend their money. When able-bodied people can do daily tasks like get out of bed, have a shower, go and see a friend, enjoy a hobby for free, why do we need to pay for the privilege of doing so? And so that brings me on to the subject of PIP, personal independence payments. Usually during means tests, normal means tests, not care means tests, PIP is ring-fenced, and quite rightly, because this is money not for living on, but to cover the many additional costs that come with having a disability. And when the change from DLA to PIP happened, some councils decided to start including the daily living element as income, and other councils are still considering doing so, such as Kent Council. They even acknowledge in their own consultation, it will mean that residents will have to pay even more towards care. And when many people are struggling with the cost of living crisis, disabled people are one of the groups already hit the hardest. We should not have to decide between paying for our heating or care that month. And councils adding PIP as income full well know they are putting an even higher burden on disabled people. And this means that some people are having to refuse care, not because they don't need it, but because they can't afford it, and others are struggling to pay their bills. What kind of a society is this? Why is it, on one hand, our country has said that people shouldn't have to worry about a bill when sick or injured for their use of the NHS, but if that need is ongoing and care is needed, then it's fair game. I would also hazard a guess that the majority of people in this country don't even realise how the charging policy works in care. Then the final topic we'll be looking at today is surveillance from councils and ICBs in relation to care plans. This comes from reports from members being told to keep minute-by-minute records, sometimes for weeks on end, in order to review their care. Other councils have contacted PAs behind employers' back to ask questions about their role and what they do, or wanted to put their own team of care staff into people's homes in order to review their needs. We have even had reports of officials wanting to put up sensors or cameras in someone's home to try and check on what's happening. Whatever the demand they are making, I fear it's all for the same reason, to try and find justification to reduce budgets. It's an affordable care policy, but by another more stealthy approach. And often it's hard to argue against their demands. There isn't always one clear law against them, but they are, in my view, morally reprehensible. Today, we're going to hear from Colin Slasberg from the Campaign for Real Care, and later on, we will have a panel featuring Claire Glassman from Winvisible, a grassroots group for women with visible or invisible disabilities, Charlie Thompson and Colin Slasberg from the Campaign for Real Care, and Fleur Perry, a campaigner and volunteer for Pathfinder's Neuromuscular Alliance. Also, as a surprise, we are very happy to have with us today John Evans, OBO, who is one of the pioneers of direct payments and independent living. The panel will be a great time to ask questions or give ideas on the issues I've mentioned, so please get your thinking caps on and put questions in the chat a bit later on. We will also be holding breakout rooms a little bit later on, so you will all have your chance to have your say. And finally, on to some better news. 2 episodes of our new podcast, ILG for Employers Like Me, are now available on Spotify, Pocket Casts, and Apple. In the first episode, Rachel Knowles and I look at the emotional aspects of being an employer, the good and the bad. And then today, Sarah Rose and I will look at the role of a PA, what one actually is, and all that surrounds it. And then a new episode will be up each Monday. And next Monday, Brett Bignell will help me through a disability-related expenses claim. The following week, David, Ashley, and I will examine the role of support in direct payments. And then finally, Wendy Bett and I will discuss co-production. Is it just a buzzword, or can it truly have an impact? I hope you all enjoy listening to them, and more will be coming this year. On the 13th of March, we will also be holding our first online peer support session for employers only. This will be hosted by Alex Cohen and Brett Bignell. You'll be able to book your space at this session on Eventbrite, and I'll put a link in the chat a little bit later. Also, if you are on Twitter, please do share our tweets on PIP and social care charges that have been made yesterday and today, and really help spread the word on this topic. We can be found at ILG_community. I'm now going to pass to Brett Bignell himself, who is going to give us a brief rundown on news in charging across the UK.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Brett, the Wales representative of ILG community. I'm going to start with Wales. It seems logical for me to do that. The upper threshold for savings in Wales is £24,000. And the maximum anybody has to pay towards the cost of their care, regardless of savings levels, is £100 a week. The issue here is that in Wales, the Welsh government set the upper limits, and they're looking to review that to increase the upper limit to be more than £100 a week. But what we're finding within the disability organisation I work for at Derris, there's a lot of people who are unable to meet their care costs, and because the local authority actually asked the Centre for Independent Living to collect that, then the local authority don't actually know what is having a real impact as far as their policy is concerned. So that's Wales. I would say to anybody involved and receiving care in Wales, it's time to lobby your assembly member and write to the Minister for Social Care, etc., because charges are going to go up, and more disabled people are going to be put into poverty. Onto England, there's no upper limit in terms of the maximum amount of money that somebody has to pay towards the cost of their care, which is appalling. You know, and the savings limits, although they haven't changed in nearly a decade.
Brett,
basically,
Brett, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Are you able to move your camera down so people can lip read? I'm really sorry to cut you off.
Sorry,
You
I
can't.
don't know whether it will. I try to. Hang on a minute.
Almost. You're really close.
Bear with me.
Sorry.
I need to move. And then that should be better.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to.
No problem. No problem. So the issue in England is just as severe, and obviously the controversy around including PIP and even the mobility component and that sort of thing, because of the changes, is a big issue. In Northern Ireland, there's no charging policy, which is a great thing, but social care policy there is very different to England and Wales. And is Agnes still around? Because I'm going to defer to her for Scotland if she is. Is Agnes on the call?
Yep, I am.
Excellent.
Yep.
Can you give us a flavour of the charging situation in Scotland, because you'd be better at it than me?
Not a problem. Just a wee quick. What happened back in 2014, there was an implementation of Frank's Law, which was on the back of a footballer who played for Dundee United. So free personal care in Scotland. There is no charge for personal care in Scotland for under 65s, and that was something that was campaigned for, and I think it's something we need to do an awful lot more about. Some local authorities still do charge. The local authority I live in do not charge for self-directed support, but they may charge for some other things as well. Thanks, Brett.
Sorry for the lip reading issue at the beginning. Whatever I do, my camera seems to drop now and again, and I didn't notice, so sorry about that.
Well, thank you so much, Brett and Agnes, for that. That's absolutely brilliant. And I'm now going to pass across to Rachel, who's going to talk about the really sad news coming from Cascadia.
Thanks, Jade. Yeah, with everything that we're speaking about in this event and looking at the chat, a lot of people are going towards having an assessment for their care. Cascada is a really important organisation. It's a charity that was set up by Belinda, and it was designed to hold local authorities and ICBs to account when they put anything in place that's unlawful. Now, what they're doing at the minute, it was opened in 2018, and now they're actually fundraising to get some barrister opinions about specific topics which are going to be really important going forward with, again, with what James talked about with regarding to funding. Now, they've raised over £8,000 so far, but it's a £15,000 target. And Belinda was mentioning that people that are going to be using direct payments may find the work that they're looking at funding to be useful. And I know that it's helped a lot of people getting the right care in place, going to the Ombudsman. So what the 4 questions are that the barristers want to talk about are Care Act processes, widely known as conversations. Are these streamlined approaches to assessments even able to count under the Care Act? The nature of duty to meet care needs. Is the duty, in fact, not really an absolute enforceable individual duty anymore because of the state we're limping along in? Direct payments. When can a council lawfully say no to a request for direct payments, or lawfully pay less than it really costs to enable the person to be their own commissioner? And finally, the last question is mental health aftercare under Section 117. Why isn't anyone using public law and judicial review to oppose S117 discharge teams to the allegation of utterly unconscionable delays in and about their statutory duty? Now, I think if there are any organisations that can help with funding, Also, what they're looking for is a consortium of organisations that might be able to hold the database with all the case law that they've sort of compiled within all those years. And I think as we're going forward with what looks like reductions in funding for social care and health, I think it's needed more now than ever before to have somebody like Cascada as holding local authorities to account. And what I can do, I can put the link in the chat for their crowd justice funding if anybody would like to maybe donate to that fund. Thank you.
Has anyone had any experience with Cascada at all they want to just tell us about briefly? Just, I know so many people have found them really useful. Please say if anyone's got their hand up, because I can't always see everyone. No, I can't see.
I don't know what Cascade is. Sorry.
It's a legal group that has been fighting on many different payment, direct payment, CHC issues. They have been a really fantastic resource, either for people to go to directly to ask for legal help, but they've also seen many battles through the Ombudsman and managed to get decisions changed for everyone. And they also get advice on the right legal questions, which can sometimes be half the battle, us knowing our rights. And I think it's going to be a real loss for the community because there isn't really anyone else doing that same sort of work. There's lots of legal groups, I don't mean that, but specifically fighting on direct payments and CHC funding. CHC funding is continuing healthcare. Sorry, I don't mean to use acronyms, which can also be called personal health budgets. So just for anyone who doesn't know.
Brilliant, thank you.
But yeah, as Rachel has just said, they've unfortunately announced they're having to close, but they are doing this fundraiser to get some last really important questions answered, which again will help everybody to have those answers, which they're going to post publicly if they get the funding. Jackie, would you like to come in?
Yeah, a couple of us, I think, here have done are doing training with Cascada to try and get people informed about their rights. One of the big things I found out was the Care Act changed the narrative as far as social workers were concerned. Instead of being more on your side, they became the gatekeepers of funding. And there's also been a dearth of training for social workers in the Care Act. What that means basically is that the Care Act can be ridden over willy-nilly and people not secure the rights that they are actually legally entitled to. With the going of Cascada, you're losing something that I think potentially struck fear into a lot of organisations. And I think if it's bad now, I think it'll be open season, knowing that major resource. And I think what we're finding is you need the legal people to be able to enforce it. It's no good us ploughing through. You've got enough on your plate. You're doing this to sort of plough through. You need that backup. I don't know if anybody's ever used legal teams, but it's magical what you can spend 5 years in our case trying to get, and a lawyer writes a letter and it's all agreed in 4 days. And I think they're a massive loss, Cascada, massive loss.
Oh, thank you so much, Jackie. That is such a good point. I've also done their disability related expenses training, which was invaluable. Paul, would you like to go now? Paul Ridley?
Yeah, we definitely need more legal advice. I mean, we had a thing where the council broke the Care Act with us 2 weeks notice to end services. Tried to say it was because of him, but then they made it about me because I was asking too many questions. And they broke the Care Act left, right and centre. We got a lawyer involved, a charity lawyer, and they wrote to the council, and it was like, oh, we've never had a letter from the lawyers before. What's going on here? The council, we don't know how to respond to it. And we were threatening them with the JR because my son could get funding because he was on benefits, so we didn't have to pay for the legal advice. So at the 11th hour, they agreed that, oh, we'll do something for them at home because they just left them at home with nothing whatsoever. And we found a place. The council then, as I put in the chat, had a meeting which I only found out by a subject access request some many months later. Senior management, instead of paying for the transport, which was required in his assessment, we're going to put him in a residential care home. And there's no minutes about this decision, no notes. That's now with the Ombudsman. I did go to the Ombudsman about what happened with him, and they said they couldn't, it was out of their remit to deal with the council breaking the Care Act. And we couldn't have sort of like go forward on, we could have gone and fought it to with the law, but it costs us a fortune. And if you're on low income, you can't do that. So you need more charity lawyers and that about. So, but yeah, it's, when you start quoting the law and things, etc., when you say you quote a bit of the Care Act, you read out a bit of the Care Act to a head of service and say, blah, 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 says that you cannot do this without first find them somewhere else. And that's the reaction we got from a head of service. You know, it's ridiculous. But as I say, yeah, we need more lawyers. Some lawyers, you're out there, they won't touch anything. No, that's not good enough for us, but you need lawyer advice. But when you stick your hand over the parapet, be prepared to be shot at because you're a target then. They don't want others to follow you. And sadly, it affected all our health and whatnot. The Ombudsman did find no favour, they acted incorrectly, but wouldn't say that they broke the law.
Thank you so much. We'll just go to Max now. And I think is there one other person with their hand up?
Hi, Jade. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to support what Jackie and, sorry, I forgot the gentleman that was just speaking's name, but I just Paul, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to support that really, that they've both summed up the exact experience that we've just had. We're literally going through this right now. And the social worker, the care practitioner, we asked one question of regarding, because I didn't know my rights. That's a really pivotal thing, I think, when, you know, you're thrown into this direct payment situation without your rights explained to you. You're not given any choice or information about being able to get legal aid if you need it, or any sort of legal advice. And what I think I would say is that upon the whole, to summarize, it feels very much like, if I've mentioned one word about I didn't even mention the Care Act, I mentioned criteria and eligibility criteria and criteria under the Care Act. And that was the first time I've mentioned it in nearly 5 years. And my care practitioner literally started to say I was attacking her. She said, I'm overwhelmed, I'm out of my depth, I need to stop this meeting. Are you recording me? And absolutely freaked out. And then the next minute, we've had a senior social worker take over the case, but she is literally acting like a gatekeeper. She's offered me independent advocacy, which I'm going to accept purely to record, hopefully with a third party, what is actually happening as another record. So if anybody gets the opportunity, or ask for independent advocacy, because they can refer you for that. I would say, though, that I think a lot of these strategies are about delaying the process, because the longer, if you think about it, I've not had a review for nearly 6 years on my care and support plan. And this is the 6th year I'm going into now. My needs have significantly increased, and they are absolutely panicking because they know they're going to have to give me more hours of care. And they are breaking the Care Act time and time and time again with every conversation I have with them. They keep insisting on coming to see me when I've asked specifically to have everything in writing, and they are absolutely gatekeepers. And it seems now that every individual is going to have to fight this legally, because without the legal accountability under the Care Act, they literally do not care about the Care Act, ironically. The Care Act might well not exist. And as a former police officer, that really shocks me, because when something's written into law, this should be very easy. You should not have to fight an individual case through a lawyer in order to have the law adhered to. It should be the default setting is that the law is adhered to, and the odd case where it has to get legally fought. This is totally the reverse in our situation. Everybody is having to fight this now legally. Everybody is having to battle down and get their forces together to literally try and get what they are supposed to be getting every day of their life. And it should not be a battle we have to fight. So I don't know how we come together, Jade and everyone, but if we can all come together and make that point alone, that if nothing else, the accountability under the Care Act and the fact that we all have to do this is not appropriate. It is not justice. It's not right.
Thank you. Right, we do need to move on, but Claire from Invisible and Gemma had their hands up. Michelle, I know you've got your hand up as well. I'd seen those two and was just going to finish with those, but we'll come back to a time where you'll get a chance to speak. It's just otherwise we won't have time to get everything in. So I'm going to pass to Claire now, please.
Thanks, Jade. Bristol Reclaiming Independent Living obtained a legal opinion from Doughty Street Chambers about the policy, which we think is widely applicable to lots of different situations, and we want to post it on our website because Brill doesn't have a website yet. We were going to share it online for people to use. Individually with solicitors is not very straightforward, because if the council is in the middle of reassessing you and you're not happy with how that's going, they can't get involved because they say the council is doing something rather than not acting. So it is a bit problematic, but we have drawn a lot of heart from the amazing network that has come around Bristol across England and Wales. So I'm less pessimistic than some other people here.
Thank you, Claire. And then if we just finish with Gemma on this topic, Gemma Frenno, I think it was.
Yes, it is. Hi. My daughter receives and personal independent payments. And I can completely agree with everyone. Social workers are just acting as that go-between, and they are trying everything to lower funding. And I'm not saying it's social workers' fault. I'm saying it's sort of in their job title now to try and limit the amount of funding people get. My big concern is this doesn't just start now. It starts in school. It starts with getting a CHC plan in place and getting TAs in place. They don't want to pay for the fundamental of our children, or ourselves being in mainstream schools. When my daughter went off to university, my daughter wanted to experience university as every other young person does and be given the opportunity to live at university. And I was told there is no way that's going to happen. That's not going to happen. She's not going to get 24-hour care. She's not going to go to university. She can stay at home and just travel to university during the day, and she can have a 9 to 5 care team and then be with you of the evening and not experience anything to the sort. I was told that she could wear incontinence knickers, but she was quite able to tell if she wanted to go to the toilet. I was told that she could go and live in an old people's home round the corner from the university, but she couldn't live independently on campus. Now I went to the Ombudsman, and we fought it, and that decision has been turned around, as she did go to university and now she lives independently. But I help people when they ask, when they come and they say, how did you, I help them, but there's nowhere for people to go. There's nothing. We don't have no support groups. We don't have any training. This is a full-time job that we take on, and none of us know what we're doing. We're just trying to do the best for our partners, our children, ourselves, to live an independent, fulfilled life, just as everybody else does. But no one gets, the government or the authority gives you no training on it whatsoever. And then you're not given any advice once you employ, or where to employ carers, and the low wage they're getting, and how we keep that all intact. I was my daughter's full-time carer for 18 years with no pay, just as a mum, and we was thrown into this at 18 and really felt quite lost and quite stranded, not knowing what to do or how to employ, or the training, the individual training. And then on top of that, my daughter's got cerebral palsy and mental health issues. On top of that, she's assessed every year for a disability that is never going to change. And she's assessed in fear. She's an intelligent young lady. She's got a first at university, but she's assessed every year. And the fear for her every time she's assessed, whether they're going to cut her funding and she's going to not be able to live independently, is horrendous for a whole month before that assessment comes. I just, as a mum, I don't see it's fair, but just as a human, I just think that it's just disgusting how people are treated and how they're disregarded.
Yeah, that is so true, Gemma. Can't agree more, to be honest. These are all things we've had meetings on and discussed. So if this is your first meeting, please do go on our website, because we've got recordings of all our events, and they're packed full of information on all sorts of topics. Also, if you were late to this meeting recording will go up on our website as well. It will take a few days, but particularly the beginning, I spoke about all the things that we're talking about today. So if you missed that, it's it'd be great to catch up. Right, to just let you know about the next step of the meeting, we are now going to have a speaker. After the speaker, we will have a short break, just so everyone knows what to plan for. And so I just wanted to let you know. So we're really excited to be joined by Colin Slasberg from the Campaign for Real Care. Colin is a former social worker and has been an amazing asset in fighting for better in social care, and is honest and forthright when it comes to holding those in. Sorry, I've lost my words though. He is honest and forthright when it comes to holding those in charge to account. So thank you, Colin. I'm going to pass across to you.
Well, thank you, Jade. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Jade. They're very complimentary. It's a very complimentary introduction. Thank you very much for that. What we want to do is to just step back a bit, actually, and reflect, to understand what's actually happening, in particular to your group. That is the people that are able to take a direct payment to employ your own PAs, because we think only then, when you can really everyone gets angry, of course they do, but the more you understand what's happening, I think the more empowered you can actually be. Now, it's in many ways too easy to say that the problem is all about austerity. That's what councils say, and that's what most people accept, that this is about austerity, and therefore councils are being starved. And yes, councils point to massive cuts in local authority budgets. 55% is quoted by ADAS, and that's absolutely true. But the truth is that social care has actually been protected during austerity. All of the other local authority services have taken major hits, but social care, the spending last year, £28 billion, was roughly the same in real terms as the £18 billion that was spent in 2010. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there isn't a funding problem, because there is absolutely a funding problem. Although, people say, well, we've got to return to the spending levels of 2010. They were hopelessly inadequate to begin with. The King's Fund and other think tanks were pressing government for an increase of funding of £7 billion to meet unmet need. And the Minister for Care at the time, Paul Burstay, was batting that away and saying, well, nobody really agrees. No, we don't think there is any unmet need, because that's what councils say. They say all eligible needs are met, which of course they are if you define eligibility according to your budget. And the other reason why there is a funding problem, not only were the 2010 levels inadequate anyway, demand has gone up. You know, over the past 10, 12 years, the number of older people has increased by about 15%. So there is greater pressure now in the system because budgets are at a standstill. They haven't been cut, but they're at a standstill. And with the older population in particular increasing, demand has gone up. But the question is this. I don't think it's enough to explain what is happening to yourselves in particular as a group. And that there is something going on. And we think actually you're experiencing something of a backlash. Let me explain. The idea of people taking cash to manage their own support systems actually goes back to the 1980s. The independent living movement waged a campaign to get the idea embedded in policy and legislation. They had discovered an escape route from a system that was institutionalizing. And they succeeded. But to do so, they had to make two arguments and make them persuasive and compelling. The first of them was that it would be cheaper. And the second was that it would set the template for all other service users. And the governments of the day, both Labour and Tory, New Labour and Tory, bought that. So they had to make the case that the new system would not only cost less, but it would actually lead to the empowerment and control of all service users, which was politically very popular in a consumerist age. But the idea that it would be cheaper came from a very influential piece of research that was widely quoted, and it compared people who were already being supported in this way from trailblazer councils like Hampshire in particular, and they compared them with an equivalent group who had the usual traditional care and support. And there was absolutely no doubt that the group with a direct payment to employ their own staff had hugely better outcomes and hugely better lives across all measures. Now, the headline that was associated with that, which was the really grabbing one for the major government of the day, was that it was also 40% cheaper. And that made it a no-brainer. And then the 1996 Direct Payments Act was duly passed. And the people who self-managed with a direct payment in this way were held up as exemplars for all. They were the heroes to whom everyone must look up. But it wasn't 40% cheaper. Without smoke and mirrors. Without having to pay the overheads of a registered provider, direct employment, it was the hourly cost that was 40% cheaper. But if you read the full report, when you get to about page 40, you realize actually that group had significantly more hours per week. So yes, it was cheaper per hour, but the more hours per week actually made it more expensive. But by 2010, 15 years later, you had the situation where about 7% of service users were working in this way, were supporting this way, but they accounted for about 13% of the budget. So neither was the second argument true. It wasn't proving to be the exemplar for the way everybody could work. And I think you know as a group that taking the cash and employing your staff requires very significant skills and energy. And it's only a small minority, yourselves, that have got that kind of skill and energy level. It's just not possible for the great majority of people who need care and support. For older people, they may well have had those skills and energy when they were younger, you know, but in their late lives, they simply don't. But it remained official policy that direct payments, so people could manage their own support, would be the key to transformation that social care was so desperately in need of. And as late as 2010, 15 years after the Act, government policy said that councils must make it the default service for all service users. It was still the only way to achieve transformation. By 2010, disillusion with upfront personal budgets had already set in. They realised that actually that wasn't going to change anything at all. The result of that instruction from government was councils adopting a completely cynical strategy. They ensured that they ticked the box of getting more people on direct payments, but they weren't people that were directly employing their PAs. They were people who were simply paying the invoice of the services they would have got anyway. So they claimed success that something like 25% of people now had a direct payment, but other research showed that only a third of those were people that were using their direct payment to employ their own PAs. In other words, it hadn't changed at all. Now, it's a characteristic, I'm afraid, of social care's leadership that it never admits failure. And this means that the consequences of failure are always mismanaged. There can be no doubt as the route to a transformed system, the idea of the 1990s of making self-management of care and support through a direct payment would be the way to transform the system. But it continues to be a very successful mode of support for people like yourselves, subject to you having sufficient size of direct payment to employ enough hours of PA. So how is the system dealing with the situation? And this is where we come to Bristol, which Claire mentioned, and before Bristol, Devon. Now, perhaps we should be grateful to Bristol for at least some measure of honesty in saying how they were going to do things, at least initially. But what's happening in Bristol and what previously happened in Devon is what's happening up and down the country. And what Bristol is saying is that if your care at home costs more than residential care, then you should be offered residential care. No longer are you exemplars for all, leading to a new future. Are now saying that your care and support is unfair and unaffordable, hence the phrase fair and affordable. Now, that is not only an unlawful and actually irrational position, it is close to being, it's almost angry and punitive, almost as if you have let them down, whereas actually they have let themselves down. A backlash, in other words. Now, Bristol says it is following the lead of Devon, who they say successfully adopted this fair and affordable policy in 2015. But Devon has never evaluated the policy. It's never published any evaluation. So the question arises, what actually did Bristol mean when they said Devon had been successful? Well, we made a freedom of information request last November to Devon, and we asked them how many people they now support at home at a cost above residential care 8 years after they adopted this fair and affordable policy. And the answer was 88. That is just 0.7% of its 13,000 service users. Now, Bristol's strategy is targeting 160 people whose care at home costs more than residential care. That is 3% of its 5,000 service users. So now we can know what Bristol would mean by success. It would mean that it would reduce the numbers of people supported at home at a cost above residential care from 160 to about 35. So, armed with this knowledge, what can you do? Where can you find reason to be hopeful? Now, we think that protest and anger have their place, but are not enough on their own. It's going to take some thinking and some careful strategies. Now, disabled people in Bristol, as Claire mentioned, mounted a very impressive campaign of protest. It was very impressive. Not only did they get the Doughty Street judgment free, They had good coverage on local media and national media. They found themselves on the One show. But the result is merely to have driven the policy underground. Yes, Bristol have withdrawn it formally, but they're doing it anyway. They've got a team of social workers specially recruited and are targeting the 160. The reviews, so-called reviews, which is, I've joined you late, but I heard some of you say, social workers are just agents of the system. That is absolutely true. And they're setting about their job of seeing how much they can cut, how many of that 160 they're able to get to accept a significant cut and go into residential care, to get from the current 3% of service users down to the Devon total of about 0.7% of service users. And Bristol's councillors really seem to have no understanding of what is happening in their name. Although the councillors have said, well, we've dropped the policy, the mayor has said they've dropped it for the time being, they don't seem to have joined up the dots and realised that at the very next committee meeting, they agreed to this strategy, which is all dressed up as if it's in the name of the Care Act. It absolutely is not. But officers are convincing their councillors that it's all lawful, appropriate, fair, affordable, just and cost effective. But we think there is hope. Long term and short term. In the long term, the hope lies, we believe, in the inevitability, sooner or later, of a transformed system. And it will be a transformed system that actually delivers on the law, that delivers on the Care Act. And we've spoken to you before about the way the system currently is actually unlawful. But it's not just unlawful, it's also hopelessly ineffective and inefficient. You remain the group of people for whom your method works. As I say, subject to you having sufficient money to employ enough hours, your system consistently works. But for other people, it absolutely doesn't. It's a gross misuse of public money. It generates dependency and therefore generates demand because it allocates resources to deficit and it allocates resources to crises. So crises and deficit is what it gets and what it creates. We believe that once we can find a way to make the misuse of public money understood in the public mind and in the political mind, that there will be a momentum towards the change that's required. And we've spoken to you before about what the transformed system will look like. And in the transformed system, which will simply be based on the lawful implementation of the Care Act, success will come to mean something very different to what it means now to councils. Now, we agree that cost effectiveness and value for money are always important in spending public money, but even more so when resources fall short of meeting all need. No money can be wasted. It's not in your interest. It's not in anybody's interest at all. But what councils currently call cost effectiveness, as Bristol has shown, addresses only cost. If it's cheaper, it's more cost effective. But the true definition of cost effectiveness, and the one that you will find in the statutory guidance to the Act, says no, cost effectiveness is a balance between cost and outcomes. So therefore, what Bristol call cost effective isn't being cost effective at all. It's cost cutting because they have no regard for the damage that's done to the human experience. And the point we made as the campaign to the Bristol consultation is that the enormity of the outcome for the 3% of service users supported to remain at home at a cost above residential, which is only about 5% of the budget, is perhaps the most cost effective of all of the support packages that they actually provide. So a true understanding of the Care Act, a true understanding of the statutory guidance to the Care Act clearly says that enabling people to remain at home at a cost well within budget capability is actually the most cost-effective way of working. So success in the transform system, Care Act compliant, will come to mean being able to live the life that's right for you, making the most cost-effective use of resources. Now that actually will mean that your group will come full circle, because it will restore you as the exemplars of how social care really should be, because you invariably make the most cost-effective use of your support to have the greatest impact on your lives. You are the exemplars, but not on the basis that it's always cheaper, not on the basis that it's a model that everyone can follow, but it is on the basis of you demonstrating how it's possible for the individual to define their needs and define their support requirements in order to achieve a vision that actually the country has already signed up to in the form of the Wellbeing Principle. You would be the gold standards. Other modes of delivery should learn from you. Now, the ILG has signed up your support for the Charter, and that's great. It's slow progress because resistance is huge. Social care's leaders don't like it one bit because it would mean transformative change. It will mean huge change. Professionals would come on the side of service users and work in partnership and collaboratively. Politicians will be exposed to the true cost of enabling everybody to have the lives that are right for them, and exposed to their responsibility to put their money where their mouth is and fund it. So not everyone agrees. I mean, certainly, we respect the position of significant sections of the disabled people's movement who don't agree, who believe that the right approach is to move beyond the Care Act and to create a legal right to all the resources for everybody to experience independent living or well-being. We just believe that there is no prospect of that happening in any foreseeable future. There's no other public service which has all the resources by legal right that it requires to meet every need. So we don't think a case can be successfully made for social care to be put in that position. And also the legal profession are yet to be persuaded that the Charter would be the best way forward, because the current system, which is rooted on the basis of the only needs to be met are those which are a legal duty to meet, creates a system of winners and losers. And of course, legal advocates, they flourish in an environment where there are winners and losers, and they quite often do have success. The argument we need to continue to have with them is that policy, the existing policy, where councils define what an eligible need is according to their resource, means that social care will be trapped forever at existing funding levels, as it has been all through austerity, and will be trapped in a system where social workers, where professionals, they tell people what their needs are, and they do that to suit the council's resource situation. But we will continue to work on it. We'll continue to work on this year, trying to make the case for a charter for the right to well-being, to deliver the Care Act once and for all. We'll continue to do that throughout the course of this year. And we're building the case the whole time and seeking more and more validation so that people take interest in what we've got to say. It's more than a moral case. It's actually an issue about the effectiveness and the efficiency and the fairness of a major public service. And there is hope in the short term too for you. And let's start with the fact that there remain 88 people in Devon who are still being supported at home above the cost of residential care, despite Devon's declared disregard for the impact of their decisions on people's lives. And it's testament to the ability of what might be called the awkward squad of people who have what it takes to resist. And you can be absolutely amongst them, because councils can be resisted. Their strategies are, they impose themselves. It can feel like bullying, but you can make the Care Act work for you. And we've spoken to you before about our toolkit. It remains available. It's on our website. You know, we urge you to look at it, because the more informed you are about the Care Act, you'll be surprised that you may well know far more than the social workers who you're dealing with and the budget holders who are pulling the strings of the social worker. You can intimidate the council just as much as the council can intimidate you. I mean, Bristol will probably be successful. The sad reality is that not all of the 160 people who they are targeting will have the strength to resist. Some will not, and they will think they've got no choice and will be grateful to accept whatever they've been offered. But our advice, as always has been, is make the law work for you. Use the toolkit. We still think it's relevant. We still think it's helpful. And you can be amongst those who actually can successfully resist, as has been the case in Devon. And in the meantime, your support for our work to make the Charter a reality as the means to finally deliver the Care Act and the honesty and integrity that needs to be driven into the system will of course be welcome, Jade. So I hope that's been helpful.
Oh, thank you so much, Colin. We love having you come and talk for us. It's always so interesting to hear what you have to say, and we really, really appreciate it.
A child having a disabled mother is, they say it's future emotional harm, and that your child is likely to become your carer, which is emotionally harmful to them, and that is used as the basis for taking the child away rather than the mother and the family being supported. And in fact, the Care Act does say that it's not just the needs of the individual that should be assessed, but also the needs of the family. Although that is a bit double-edged how it's worded as well, but it does say that they should put resources into supporting the family. And on the issue of councils being cash-strapped and budgets, they spend an enormous amount in children's social care on privatised placements in residential placements for children, where, for example, Bristol admitted a couple of years ago that some of their placements were costing £600,000 a year for one child. And £1 million is not unknown. £1 million a year rate is not unknown. And often the companies don't even provide the support that they're charging for. Like, for example, if a child with autism needs 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 or something like that, they don't even provide that staffing. So there's a lot of profiteering in children's social care. So I think in our discussions about the budget and where spending is going, we need to keep in mind about spending on children's social care and child protection, and the fact that it's a huge injustice. The number of children that actually need to be removed is quite small, and most removals are against mothers suffering domestic violence, disability, discrimination, poverty, racism, and other social issues are used to remove children. And of course, disabled children and children of colour are disproportionately taken. So I'll put some links in the chat to more info if people are interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And our final member of the panel, we're really excited to have with us John Evans, OBE, who is one of the pioneers of direct payments and independent living. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm John Evans, and yeah, I've been the campaigner for independent living since the late 1970s, and was one of the persons that challenged my local authority to enable me to move out of residential care into the community. And I've been campaigning and promoting that ever since, really. And yeah, we've got to a point now where it's quite clear from what the comments people have been making that it's an unprecedented situation. And I don't want to feel that I've spent 40 years of my life to lose independent living. And we're at a crossroads where we need to come together. And I think one of the kind of lack of opportunities we've had is that we did have a national center for independent living and then the national representative organization of disabled people that brought us together. But sadly, we do not have that anymore. And it's good that ILG have come in and filled the gap, but it's not a sort of campaigning organization in the sense that, you know, to get people out in the streets again, because I think, you know, we need some more direct action. The way we got the Direct Payments Act and the DDA in the beginning, the Disability Discrimination Act, was by doing that, by direct action and going out into the streets, because I mean, unless we take some action now, and unless people step up, I'm afraid we're going to be losing parts of independent living. It's already becoming very difficult, especially those who are in receipt of local authority funding. Yeah, I can say a lot more, but I don't. I think we'll leave it at that. So we got people. We give time to people to ask questions.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me as it's complaining about my internet.
Yeah, you're doing okay.
You can hear me? Okay, good. Sorry. Right. So we're going to take some questions now. If you'd mind putting them in the chat, if you're able to do that. If you're unable to write in the chat, please put your hand up and I will come to you. It will be as I see you rather than in turn, because I do not have the memory to remember exactly what order people put hands up. But if you can put them in the chat, it is really appreciated. But we're going to start with the first question, which is around PIP, and the impact. So PIP, as most of us know, was introduced as a as a benefit to cover the extra cost of being disabled. What do you all think the impact will be if councils choose to take PIP into account as income? I know some already do that, but some others are considering it. So I'm going to go to each in turn. So and then in future, if you want to answer a question, just give me a wave. So I'll start with Fleur.
It's going to create a further dent in people's already stretched budgets. It's going to lead to, you know, lower quality of life outcomes for those people in receipt of social care. I do think there needs to be an argument about the wellbeing principle in the Care Act when we're fighting that. And as one of the other panel members said about the equality of taking benefits but not other payments, I would love to see that changed.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, I can't really speak on this too much because it's not an area of my knowledge, other than I was refused PIP. That's all I know about PIP. But in terms of, yeah, what Fleur's just said, that the wellbeing principle in the Care Act around economic wellbeing and equal choice and control, you know, the PIP clearly is meant for a specific thing, and by using that payment towards your care in a different way, then that's not right. But I can't say any more on it because I don't know enough.
That's fine, thank you. Colin?
Well, no, similarly, Jade, I think other panel members are far more knowledgeable about charging than me, so I won't take up your time with my answer.
Brilliant, thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Jade. I mean, following on from what Flo was saying, we have actually seen women drop out as a result of the higher charges, and it does lead to people living in squalid conditions with an impact on our health, or being reliant on acquaintances who often turn exploitative. And I think that's particularly an issue for women, because women end up reliant on guys who take advantage, and that is a very serious problem. On the plus side, we helped a woman living in a supported living place to challenge the inbuilt care charges from living in accommodation for people with learning disabilities, where she was being charged £129 a week. And with our support, she managed to get that down to £28 a week. So, and we're pursuing the meals charge that's part of living there as well, that is against independent living principles. So I'll put that in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. And John?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a very negative move if that happened, because originally, I mean, that payment came into being as an extra to cover the extra costs of disability in everyday life, and you know, it costs us a lot more to live than anybody else, and you know, we wouldn't be able to cover those costs. And the part of the problem these days with it's managed by DWP, and DWP do not have a good record of understanding what independent living means, and you know, what kind of freedoms people can get from that. And the alternative is living in an institution, which is not in this day and age, you know, in 2024. You know, we fought to get out of institutions, and, you know, it's horrendous. You know, the figures now of authorities who are now considering that as another move. So yeah, I'm totally against it, using that to cover one's care.
Thank you. Right, I'm now going to read a question, but please give me a wave on the panel if you want to answer it, so I won't force anyone who's it's not your jam sort of thing. So this question is, how would you approach being told a council or ICB has a specific blanket policy on something, such as not allowing PA time for shopping, appointments, or household maintenance? Would anyone like to answer that one? Colin?
Yes. I think what you have to do is always bring the conversation back to well-being, and as defined by the Care Act. The 9 areas of well-being in the Care Act cover just about everything. And what the social worker will be trying to do is to diminish what are authentic needs for well-being and dismiss them just as wishes. That's the way the system works. They consult the service user to find out what you wish. But bear in mind that a wish has no weight under the Care Act, it's needs. But the Care Act also says that the council should regard you as the best judge of your own well-being, and that is about needs. So always try and return the conversation. There should be no blanket policies. That's clearly unlawful, and you can say that. And if shopping is an essential service for your well-being, check it against the 9 areas and make that statement as clear and unequivocal as you possibly can. It's not your wish, it's your belief that you need support with shopping because it will promote your well-being in particular ways. Then it's very difficult for the council to dismiss it.
Thank you. Does anyone else on the panel want to address that one, or should we take another question? Okay. Michelle, I very rudely earlier stopped you. You had your hand up and I stopped you talking. I still feel bad about that. So is there anything you wanted to come in first, to give you first dibs as I cut you off?
No, it's okay. It goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning. So no, don't worry.
Okay,
Don't worry, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, can I pass across to you? Bob Williams Findlay.
Yeah, my question builds on what John said. John and myself were all shares of BCWP. We don't have that now, as John said. So we are facing the greatest threat on all levels as disabled people. So I want to put it to the panel and indeed the meeting that it is time for us to create a new platform so we can work together across the campaigns. We will still do what we're doing as our own organisations and campaigns, but we come together as a body to prioritise the campaigns that we can take up to fight back. And 2 years ago, we set up the Disabled People Alliance to challenge the Tory government and party. I am suggesting we get that out of mothballs and have a dialogue where we can come together and discuss how we can work together as an organisation and campaign. So I'd like to hear your view on that suggestion.
Well, thank you, Bob. Just very quickly, that kind of is the point of ILG community. We are very much wanting to bring everyone together. We're not here to talk over other organisations or replace what they're doing. The idea of us is to bring organisations and PA employers together so that we can campaign on these issues and we can fight back on these issues. So, but it would be great to hear what other panel members have to say. Would anyone like to answer that one? Claire?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I think that's important. I mean, we are part of quite a few different networks, like DPO England Forum. We work closely with Disability Rights UK and also Mark Harrison from Reclaiming Our Futures Alliance. So I think it's kind of happening informally, and a lot of groups have supported the Bristol Reclaiming Independent Living campaign and are demanding similar in our own local authorities. So I'm not sure what to suggest. I know people are kind of doing as much as we can, but you know, maybe there should be more meetings of all the networks together somehow.
Thank you. Charlie, pass to you.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I think you're absolutely right. And Claire, yeah, you know, we've met many times in many different meetings. I think one of the key things is collectively looking at a pathway to change, and you know, the different types of work that can be done, because everything has its place within the movement. And I think we have to be strategic, and we have to work out what we want to say, and have clarity and a kind of as much of a unified voice as possible with that, because I think that's where it's difficult when you're, you know, you're working in smaller kind of silos, and we all have different ideas about what we want and all of those things. But I think, and a lot of us have been working in the movement for a long time, others are much newer to the movement. But I think what's really important is that we're all here because we care, and that we need to make sure that people aren't excluded, and that everybody gets a chance to contribute. And yeah, I think it's absolutely crucial that we work together, and that we find a practical pathway that we want to pursue by way of policy change, I think, personally.
Thank you. I have to say the time has absolutely flown in this meeting. We don't have that much time left, so I'm going to try and get through everyone whose hands are up. If you're able to keep your question as brief as possible, we'll try and get through as many. So Alex Cohen, can I pass across to you, please?
Sorry, just getting to the mute button. Actually, it was more a comment, so I won't take up a lot of time. But where should a person go to when they are on a CHC budget and they are put against their will onto a notional budget, which means they lose control of it, and the CHC say they are going to do a review, but they put a person onto a notional budget before they've even done the review. And these are the sort of stories that, well, this is the first time I've heard it this badly, but that this is the sort of thing that is happening to disabled people, that literally the choice and control is taken completely away from them. Where can people go? Because there doesn't seem to be a place anymore where people can really go to have this dealt with.
Can I put my hand up metaphorically? I would say the health ombudsman would be one way to go. There's also guidance on continuing healthcare online that you can show them that will show that this is very much not appropriate.
But they have no right to do that because, I mean, from 2014 to through the Care Act, anybody on a continuing health budget, which is commonly known as a personal health budget, should be able to get that money in as a direct payment. So they shouldn't be able to take that away from anybody. This is the problem at the moment, you know, because it is split now between local authority support and the continuing health, personal health budgets. And unfortunately, people who are on personal health budgets are subject to a medical model approach very much by the ICBs. Some are changing, but not many, unless you got a campaign group or a support group in your area supporting you, like we do here in Hampshire. Then you're at the whims of people who are authoritarian and will take over your lives. But that's not what independent living is about. Independent living is about us having control and choice over our lives, and being able to live that life as we wish. So this is why we need what Bob suggests, a united organization to be able to fight on behalf of those who are unable to fight for themselves. It's vital.
Thank you so much. Iggy, I'll pass across to you now, please.
Is that me? Yes.
Iggy.
Iggy. Is that me? Sorry, Vicky.
Oh, Iggy.
Iggy, sorry.
Iggy. I'll come to you next, Vicky. Sorry.
Hi, Jade.
Hi, Iggy.
I just want to say, brilliant session. Thank you for arranging it. The biggest thing for me is not our individual stories. We're way beyond that. What we need is to gather our strength, join each other, like Jade is trying to do, not as individuals, but as a group, we will have a stronger voice. What we need to do is, as Bristol Independent Living did, when you see something, tweet it, share it, make sure that your MPs know about it. Now, I know a lot of people will say, I don't have time, I don't have the energy. But please, I've seen, I try to help wherever I can. The amount of time people put their frustrations onto Facebook or onto Twitter, when that exact wording could be put in to a letter of complaint and sent to the local authority. You're not without power. The power is there. We have to work together, support each other. So if somebody says Kent is changing their facilities, let's all hit Kent, because that's what happened at Bristol. Somebody says, my authority, can you help? Let's all gather together, keep bombarding them, send them legislation, send it to the MPs. It's only then we join together that we will have the strength to actually take action. Thanks, Jade.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's such an excellent point. I'm sorry, everyone, for going over a little bit. We'll just get through these last couple of questions. Vicky, can I come across to you now, please?
Yes, good afternoon. I haven't said hello yet, but I live in Maidstone and I'm on a direct budget. And I just want to say hello to John, who's down there in my right-hand corner. And it's lovely to see John. We do go back, way back, to the British Council of Disabled People, which we sadly miss now, I have to say. And I think we should be all out there campaigning together to be recognised as people with lives. And we need to just push for people to understand the whole process of where we've come from, which is, for me, all lost now. We don't talk about independent budgets anymore within social services. And they were the people that used to try and encourage us to go on independent budgets and use our money to support ourselves to do what we need to do. And John is so right. I mean, he was my advocate years ago, and when he actually did workshops. I was with him in them. And, you know, I think we've gone so far back. Where have we gone? Where's our campaigning arm gone? Where's our voice gone? It's been splintered apart. And I think we need to all come together and do some disability action, and talk about our rights, not be hidden away in a corner just to wait for a care manager to come along and tell us what we're not entitled to. Sorry, my voice is going, but I just want to say we need to get together and we need to have some direct action, and we need to be heard, not all be scared about what we're scared about. And if we're united, it's so much better.
Well said, Vicky.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. John, did you want to go back to that at all?
Yeah,
Just kind of
no,
rally of support.
yeah, I mean, I fully support the need for that, and whatever ILG can do in the meantime, I think you should do it. You know, we need somebody who can carry it forward, and you know, we're all here together. That you brought people together to, you know, to discuss this. So I think you need to take the lead until we have something else, because we can't wait. You know, time is precious, and we have to move fast before we lose it.
That's a really good point. Thank you. Nina, would you like to come in now?
Yes, just quick, going back to how would we be affected if they scrutinize what we can and can't have? If my carer couldn't shop for me and take me to appointments, because of my agoraphobia, I wouldn't get any shopping. I wouldn't have any appointments. My life would be stuck in the house with my 2 assistance dogs, and that would be it. So, you know, they're already taking my money. So if they dictate that as well, you know, what's the point of me being here?
Oh, thank you so much. No.
Thank you.
Right, just before we wrap everything up, Anise, would you like to come in at all? I know you were polite and not putting your hand up, but I really want you to have your chance to speak as well.
Oh, thank you for squeezing me in. But I think Claire already mentioned Reclaiming Our Futures Alliance with Mark Harrison, and the Disabled People's Forum is based in England. However, I know Scotland and Wales is working with Disabilities Rights UK, who work closely with the government and United Nations. I think there's lots of small efforts, but it's about bringing them together and also remembering sort of intersectional voices, racialized people, people of color, or what we call the global majority, and then putting into that the LGBTIQA plus community. So always remembering those intersections. And I would like to plug the 4th of March as a day of action by Deepak around the changes in benefits, and the 6th of March, which is a day of action around the budget. So it's about helping each other out. And like Colin Barnes, who set up Disability Studies at Leeds, said to me last year when we launched the Nothing About Us Without Us exhibition at the People's History Museum, I think it really does come down to austerity, whatever movement and community you come from. I think it has a lot to do with austerity. And I think a lot of us are exhausted because not only are we dealing with disabling barriers, but we're also dealing with LGBT phobia, racism, sexism, and other things. And just to echo Iggy's point, I think it isn't really about individual stories and soapbox moments or stories of heroism and overcoming tragedies, but collective voices and finding what's common between all of us, because what's happened historically is that we've gone to the streets, we've been arrested whilst charities were sat having their biscuits and teas. So I think it's important that when we have capacity to do what they did in the olden days, go to the streets and politely kick a fuss. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And Claire, would you like to come in?
Just to round off, I just wanted to say we do get a lot of hope from winning individual cases with women, and we have been able to make a difference one by one and then share, so that the councils and the benefit assessors are held to account and are held to a standard of consideration of our needs. And you know, despite the sort of grim situations that many of us are facing, it is really great to be together, and also, you know, to bring out our individual circumstances. I think is really important as a way of strengthening who we are and what we represent and what we want, because you know, not everyone is in the same situation, and we want a whole range of things, family life and different situations. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you so much to all the panel. I'm sorry, I feel like we didn't have much time in the end, and we'll take that on board for the next meeting and make sure the panel gets more time, because that's what you really want to hear, is all this wealth of experience and knowledge. Just in regards to the discussion we've just been having, I'm wondering whether we should hold a webinar on campaigning. Anyone can come along who's interested in discussing the topics we've been discussing further. It can be a platform for groups to come along. It can be for individuals to come along. One of the things we said when we first set this group up, ILG Community, was we didn't want to be a group that just sat around talking about things. We wanted to do something about it. And that can be solved in a variety of ways. It can be listening to someone's problems and trying to give knowledge and advice. But we also want to do more of the actual campaigning. You know, we do have some budget that we can use, and we really want to start reaching the masses on some of these issues. And I agree, there was a comment in the chat about wider issues, and you know, we would love to take the world on in terms of disability rights, but there is so much to do in direct payments, CHC funding, whatever funding body you're in first. But they all connect, they all matter. You know, benefit issues impact on everything, just or whatever it might be, access issues, you know, it all matters. So we will put a date together for that meeting, and if we want to continue the discussion, please do come along. We also have our Facebook group for employers. If anyone wants to carry on the conversations we've been having there, you are very, very welcome to join. And when I say employers, if you run a budget for a loved one or someone else, that is very much included as well. You know, all kinds of employers welcome. I'm going to put some dates for the diary in the chat, but just to quickly go over it, we've got our next main online event is the 22nd of May. And then the other online main event is the 25th of September. So they are good dates to go in your diary. And it's always 1:30 to 3:30. And then we've got 3 online peer support sessions from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And that's the 13th of March, the 24th of June, and the 23rd of October. But I'll put all those in the chat so you don't have to remember them. And I will also be sending out an email with all the links that we've been talking about today, and the information for anyone who can get it from the chat. So don't worry if you don't see it now. So, but thank you so much. I'm really sorry we've gone over time. This is the first time we've done it, but I just really, it's so important to get these questions and get everyone on the panel a chance to speak. Thank you so much, Colin, for your fantastic talk earlier, and thank you so much to everyone on the panel for coming along. We so appreciate you giving up your time, and thank you everyone who came, especially if you're still here now, because we really appreciate the people that hang on to the last minute. But as I said, this will be recorded, so if you missed anything, it'll be on the website in the next few days. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, my email has been put in the chat. We'll look at the Facebook group link is also in the chat, so please do come and contact us. And thank you so much for coming, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Well done.
Thanks, Jade, for all your hard work for this
Yeah.
event.
Thanks,
Oh,
Jade.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jade.
you. Thank
David
you.
as well.
Can we
Bye,
not
everybody.
have a campaigning date to meet in London outside 10 Downing Street?
It's just I can't travel, so it would have to be something somebody else would have to organise.
Yeah.
That is why we are an online organisation, because I hate exclusion of people that can't travel, but that doesn't mean those things can't happen as well. You are welcome to come into our Facebook group, put a date in and get people to come along. Yeah, you're very welcome to do that.
It might be good to organise a hybrid type thing.
Yes.
Where, you know, we have people online and people in person, and somehow, you know.
Yeah, perhaps that we can discuss that at the campaign webinar, and then we can get some more specifics in place. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jade.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody.